I'm going to start off, I'll share my screen. And this presentation is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada. And this topic is fraud protection for seniors. My name is Andrew Smith, and I am a Chartered Professional Accountant. I'm also a CIRP, which is a Chartered Insolvency Restructuring Professional. And I work for Bullwood and Company, and we're a licensed insolvency trustee firm. So we help people deal with debt problems. And we do see people that have been victims of scams. Now, in this presentation today, it's going to take us about an hour. But this presentation is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Canada, and there are over about 210,000 chartered accountants all across Canada, and we work in all various organizations like accounting firms, in entertainment, sports, government, technology, and not-for-profits. Now, depending on our jobs, we'll be responsible for making things like business financials, managing budgets, and developing plans and policies that help businesses grow. Now, before I get into continue on today's presentation, just want to go through a quick disclaimer here. But now, the views expressed in this series is non-authoritative and have not been formally endorsed by the CPA Canada. And this information included in this publication is just for general information purposes only, and should not be used as a substitute for consulting with a professional advisor. Okay. Now, what we're going to talk about today with our agenda is what is fraud, how does it work, what are some of the vulnerabilities with fraud, signs of being victimized, and what to do if you do fall victim, and types of fraud that are out there. Now, in the introduction, fraud can be methodical. And what that means is that the current approach to fraud is sometimes they build layers into it to ensure that every actor or person involved in this large production play plays their part and is almost completely removed from the rest of the process. So the person that you might meet to deal, who is trying to engage with you, might not actually be the person that ends up with the money. They try to put a lot of players in place to ensure that they're away from what really happens. Now, awareness is not enough when you're trying to understand the problem, and vigilance is also important. Now, it's not, you shouldn't consider it to be something of paranoia, but it's just more of just trying to temper your expectations or understanding and your knowledge of what can happen so that you can make intelligent decisions when you're under pressure. And that's what we're finding with a lot of fraud victims, is that they're trying to push a lot of pressure onto you to make you make a decision quickly. And that's where you have, if you're diligent, you can make sure that you're making a smart decision in that pressure situation. Now, victims, sometimes you don't even know that you're playing a part when the fraud is happening, and that can happen when you go to an ATM and they have some kind of skimmer that's involved, where it scans your card and you don't even realize it, or it's a computer-based keylogger. And an ATM skimmer and computer-based keylogger, I'm going to explain throughout the presentation, so I won't go into what they are specifically at this moment. Now, there's really two different types of fraud out there. One is a theft, and the other one's fraud itself. And what we consider fraud is when someone's actually trying to take your identity. And so the false identity can be used by another person, dead or alive, or even a fictional one that appears legitimate. So while credit cards are used in the most short-term types of crimes, and based on information we have, around 73% of the time, fraud is done on credit cards. The most effective long-term identity fraud is ghosting, and that's when someone is using someone's social insurance number to collect deceased individuals' identity to receive their social benefits. So they keep collecting CPP and old age security after the person has passed away. Now, identity fraud can occur without identity theft, and as in the case where a fraudster has given somebody's someone's identity information for other reasons. They've collected it and they use it to commit the fraud, or when the person's whose identity is being used is working with the person committing the fraud. Now, people often don't realize that that they're legitimate entities. So they are simply the sum of the number of data or points of information. And the minimizing of the amount of information to impersonate you is simply a name, but can be a real cause of damage. So criminals will be looking to get their hands on a number of information from you, and it could be your full name, date of birth, social insurance number, where's your address, what's your mom's maiden name, any kind of username or password for websites, driver's license, your PIN for your debit card and your credit card. And they also want the back and front of your credit card information, or bank accounts. They want to see your signature, or even passport number. And so all that information can be used. And they don't need all of it. They just need a few pieces, and then they can help to determine exactly how to start committing that fraud against you. So how can you be aware of the damage? Now, most of the time when fraud has been committed against you, you're going to become aware when you see a statement, bank statement or a credit card statement, the money's gone, or have been transferred out of your account, or you see your credit report and you find that there's new accounts or loans that have been created, or there's been retail purchases on your credit card. And the main damage can be to your credit report or other negative impacts that can be irreversible. Mainly these damages are the bank or somebody's coming to try to collect the debt from you. It hits your credit report, so then you start getting phone calls potentially from debts about collections, or you get people requesting that you pay them for stuff. So it can be hard to get phone calls every day, numerous times a day, when people are calling you about a debt that you had nothing to deal with. So the best way to be on top of it is have your credit card statements sent to your house, or if you're really good online, be able to check them out online on a monthly basis. And that way, then you can actually see what's going on through your banking. Now, in some cases, criminals will try to hide their tracks so that they can use the same method over and over again. In other words, they'll try to actually obscure their criminal activities so they can victimize the same target over an extended period of time, where in other cases, they don't try to bother to hide. They'll actually make very large purchases very quickly, and try to maximize how much money they can get out of you. So you kind of have to look at it, and this is where looking at your credit card statements or your bank statements and seeing what kind of transactions are happening, you can become very aware of those transactions. Now, how does identity fraud work? So despite the stiff penalties involved in successful prosecution of identity fraud, it really works well. Even though there's stiff penalties, the trouble is that they have a very low rate of actually prosecuting people when it comes to identity fraud. So that's why they'll commit it. It's very lucrative when they do make it happen, and unfortunately the police don't seem to have enough resources to do a good enough job of fighting this. Now, even when pressured by an aggressive part, understand why certain personal information is being asked of you, and ask questions to make it an intelligent, thoughtful decision. In other words, people need to know the facts about how identity fraud works, so that you can make those decisions. So how does this type of crime manifest itself? How will they know when it is happening to them? And what should you do if you're ever suspicious? So what does identity fraud look like? So the top 3 scams sort of going on right now. One is a fraudulent service. So, and this is coming from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, but their top 3 scams being reported as fraudulent services. And this can be for telecommunication, internet, finance, medical, energy, warranties, or insurance and sales services. And so someone might come to your door, they might call you, and they're trying to get you buy into some kind of service or subscription. And again, it might not cost you a lot of money every month, but it's a service that you don't really need. So you just kind of want to be diligent. Do you actually need this? What are you getting any proper service? I would always recommend to say, hey, give me your agreement, and I'll talk to my daughter or my son about this, or my professional, to see if I actually need this service. Another one is the prize pitch, where you haven't actually they're offering you some kind of contest, or calling you and saying that you won a prize. You just got to pay some money before they can give you the prize. So they're trying to offer you something, get some money out of you, and then either it's not worth the money that you paid for, or the prize is not really there. Another one is the grandparent scam. And this is a call from some kind of family member or friend who tries to get you to send money by a money transfer to a money transfer company, or just trying to get you to give them money. They need help, and they're trying to really push on you that they're part of your family. Now, what other information do scammers want? Again, I've kind of gone over it, but they want to know your name, your date of birth, not social insurance numbers, where you live, any mother's maiden name, where maybe they're born, username and passwords, and driver's license, because they want to be able to try to then go online. And if you don't have a strong password, they can break those, even if they just get some of the information. And again, they want personal identification information, credit cards. They want to see both the back and the front, the expiry date, and that 3-digit digital printed number on the signature panel. If they can get your bank account information, where you bank, signatures, passport information. Now, criminals can use stolen or reproduced personal financial information or financial information to, one, access your bank accounts, apply for loans, credit cards, and other goods online, make purchases online with your credit cards, or even receive government benefits, even if it's transferring it to a different bank account, or moving it, or even just getting it sent somewhere else. So if you ever see some kind of disruption in how things are going for you, if you got your government benefits and somehow 1 month they go missing, call the banks, or call CPP, Service Canada, and find out what's going on there. If you're really good at monitoring your bank account, looking at it and seeing, okay, is there money going out of the bank account you're not sure of, check on that. And then I would recommend reviewing your, as I say, monthly bank statements or credit card statements, just for things on there to make sure that A, you know what it is, and 2, it's a service that you actually want. Again, because you guys know that you're home or you can be home a lot of time, it can make you vulnerable for people at the door. So I always recommend never give money at the door, and never agree to do anything on the phone or mail unless you've asked for it. So unless it's a service you've already requested, and then never give people money on the door. One of the things you can do is put maybe a no solicitation sign on your mailbox, if you think you're in a high traffic area and don't want extra people attending your place, or you can even install a security service. Now, the security service is only a preventative measure. It's not going to actually stop somebody from coming to the door. And if they do commit a fraud against you, again, it's really hard. The only benefit is that maybe the RCMP will actually have what the person looks like. Now, and again, try just to be reassure that yourselves that, hey, if someone is calling you and it's not rude to hang up the phone on a solicitor, or if you decide, hey, I don't want to open the door, just let them know that, hey, you know what, I'm not opening the door at this time. Or if someone is being rude to you on the phone or demanding that you pay them some money, just hang up. You can even get call display, and that way, then if it's a number you don't know, you can just not pick it up as well. Other vulnerabilities, because maybe you do live alone or in an isolated area, and tend to be a trusting person. Again, you got to be also aware of potentially caregivers, even family and friends and neighbors, and be careful dating websites. So remember, fraudsters are the only ones to aren't the only ones to watch out for. There's been cases of caregivers who actually have stolen from people. So because you might rely on people for help in doing day-to-day care, like grocery shopping, bill payments, and other sort of purchases, you can be vulnerable to these. And it's not only uncommon, but more than 25% of the crimes against older people are committed by family members. Again, it's knowing who's borrowing a credit card or really a debit card. You want to make sure you know what they're using the money for. I would even recommend not giving people your credit cards or debit cards, because then they can make purchases without you knowing. So there is a very fine line between abuse and neglect. So past hurts and unmet obligations and mental health can come into play in family situations. So it can make it very difficult to separate abuse and neglect between family members. Excuse me. Another thing to be careful is, again, with the dating websites, there are legitimate dating websites, but there's also a lot of scams out there. And back in 2012, it was reported that Canadians lost $16 million to these dating scams. And I know it says it, or in this case, it says 16 million, but that's only what was reported. So you have to be aware that people play on your guys' emotions, and they might try to take advantage of you, saying that they need your help. So you have to be aware of those things and really think about try to take the emotion out of the transaction itself. Maybe you have some feelings for the person, but if they're asking you for money, you have to kind of look at it from a point of, do I really want to help this person, or are they being honest with me about their situation as well? Now, fraudsters are usually seasoned criminals, so they sometimes are willing to spend weeks, even months, building up trust with you, that they can actually start by providing legitimate looking pictures, stories, and profiles, and then start to ask you for money. So be prepared. They might even start out with a few $100s, or trying to reconnect a utility or help a family member out, or they're asking for you to pay for their airline ticket to come meet you, and then something happens and they can't come on that flight. Those are really telltale signs of a potential a fraud happening. Just try to remember that many people will exaggerate or lie online about their profile or who they are. So it may be worth spending some money to do a little bit of background check on a person before you actually make contact with them. And always try to never give out your full name, your address, or your phone number to someone online on a dating website until you've met them and you've got to really know them. And always try to meet in a public place if you're meeting someone for the first time. And just be careful of individuals who you never meet, and they always say that something comes up, medical, family, something happens. If every time it turns around that you're trying to make a meeting with them and they have these sort of excuses, that's pretty much a telltale sign that, again, potentially someone's trying to do some fraud against you. So, excuse me. Now, again, because you guys might have some health issues and might really depend on other people, you might feel that you have to stay at home or have people stay with you to maintain your health. So unfortunately, scammers do target seniors, and by offering them fraudulent home improvements, and then they can defraud you of thousands of dollars. So health issues like dementia, hearing, or sight loss can also be exacerbating the problem and making yourselves, unfortunately, a little more vulnerable. So if any kind of contractor or somebody says that they need full payment upfront before they're going to start a service to do the home renovations, or they want an e-transfer or cash upfront, that's a type of scam. Normally, a contractor is not going to require you to pay the full amount of the bill before they even do the job. And what we've heard is that sometimes they'll get you to give the money, they'll start the project, they won't finish it, and then they'll demand more money to say come back, and then they won't ever come back, and it ends up costing you more money because then you're required to hire somebody new to come in and fix the problem that somebody else created. So again, you just want to be aware of where these sort of vulnerabilities can happen. So another one is just have more money available. So generally, again, you guys do have more money available than other generations. You've had fairly good health throughout the more prosperous time. So it can be difficult if you do have a financial loss, especially at your guys' age, again, because you don't have any other sources of income or limited sources of income. You do have to try to be proactive in trying to protect what income and you do have or money. So as frauds or coercion against yourselves by close ones are on the rise, you just need to be more cautious of being encouraged from people handing over money or requesting you to hand over money or assign property to them or joint status. And it's essential that you get advice from a legal or tax professional before you do any kind of transfer of property or changing property joint status, because there are implications that if that happens. So with it, if you have own property and you put somebody on there as a joint tenant and you pass away, that person becomes the full or they own that property. There's no sort of transfer of title. So again, where if you were to pass away and if you were the only owner of the house and it's in your will, it's going to get sold and distributed between any beneficiaries. Where in this kind of scam, they get put on the house and then it becomes theirs. So don't rush into signing anything. Take your time. There's nothing wrong with saying that you need time to consider before you lend anybody some money or invest your money in anything, or even if they're asking you to transfer property. Now, you can make excuses of saying that your money's locked in, that you have to go to the bank to get access, make an appointment. Again, they might still try to work around that and say, yeah, you just have to get this money after that. But again, they are pretty diligent, so you have to try to work what they're going to do. And then even talk to your banker if you have one, your lawyer if you have one, any kind of accountant or financial professional you have, before giving any kind of sizable sum of money to anyone, especially if they're saying that they're going to borrow the money for borrowing money from you, or even if they want a kind of a gift from you. And now if you do proceed, make sure it's well documented and that you even get independent legal advice about how to draft up any kind of loan agreement, so that, again, trying to protect yourself as well. Especially especially if it's family, because if there's other kids involved, they might actually get can start fighting amongst themselves about money. But with kind of lending money, document it. Make sure you do have documentation, and the more detailed that kind of a loan is, the better for everybody. Now, again, we might not all be the most tech savvy people, but the more time you spend online, you do want to try to work to understand what's going on there. So if you do get a new computer, smartphone, or tablet, just be sure to spend some time on it to understand things like phishing or keeping your computer patches up to date. And using a firewall and good antivirus software can help protect you in these situations. And again, if you do have a family member that is more tech savvy than you, they can help you set up some of these things. Now, signs of being a victim. So some of the main ones are just a creditor starts mentioning some unknown account that you have, or that they say you have. Or if you apply for some credit and they get a notice of a denied application, or if bills come to your house for goods and services that you don't think you met or had, or you start missing bank statements or credit card statements. These are sort of signs that you could be a victim. So I always recommend talking to your bank. Contact them by email or telephone, set up an appointment, and talk to them about, okay, what's going on here. Again, the quicker you contact the bank and help identify these issues, the quicker that the bank can respond and cut off access to that credit card or potentially remove the fraudulent debts. So actually, sorry, the last one here about banks contacting you by email or telephone. This is more of a sign if they're indicating that, if they do indicate that you should go to the branch to get a new card, that's a sign of being victimized. So the last one's a bit tricky because there's a lot of emails out there, fraudulent emails saying, oh, you click on this link or access this URL to update your banking information. I'm even seeing text messages saying, hey, you know what, you're getting a credit from Rogers. Please click this link to update your banking information so we can give you a credit. And again, I know that's a scam because I don't have a Rogers credit phone, but it can be a little disconcerting if you do work with Rogers and you get this text message and you think it's a legitimate refund that you're getting on your billing. But what happens is that if you click that link and you give them your banking information, and boom, someone is now just able to access your bank account. So you do have to be concerned about text messages and or even if the bank, if they say the bank is contacting you about a fraud, this is also a good sign to maybe just call the bank back. So unfortunately I've been a victim of where a bank has contacted me. I got a call and they say, oh, you know what, I'm the credit card company and we've noticed that you've had these couple transactions on your credit card. Please press 1 to talk to us, or say that you didn't authorize these transactions. And what happens is I clicked 1, it switched me over to this person, and then they started asking me questions about my transactions and my credit card information. And when I started to really think about what was going on, I thought, you know what, how about I call you back? And then I'm going to call, and then I got off the phone and I called my credit card company. And they said, no, you know what, you actually didn't have any credit card or fraudulent transactions on your credit card. But I had somehow given them my credit card information. And so what they did is they canceled the credit card. So just be aware of if someone calls you up and says, hey, you know what, or same kind of thing, an automated message saying you've been a victim of fraud. These transactions happened on your credit card. Please log in, or please press 1 if you want to authorize these, or 2 to decline them. Just if you're concerned, just hang up the phone and call your credit card company. Now, what should you do? So first of all, any of these crimes can happen to anyone, and it is on the rise. As I said, it's happened to myself. Now, if you do suspect that your personal information is being used without your authorization, the RCMP recommends that you start by creating any kind of a log of your activity and communication, okay? And so let's try and just writing down, okay, what happened? What happened to your credit card? Who did you talk to? What phone numbers are you dealing with? Now, you can contact the credit card companies, or to contact your credit agencies. And one thing you can do is you can put a fraud alert on your file, so that with the collection or the credit agencies. So what happens is that when anyone applies for a credit on your account or with your information, the credit agency is actually going to require that creditor to do a further inquiry about who you are as an individual, and that should help try to reduce any kind of fraud. Another one is if you think contact your creditors. So contact the fraud department of your creditors for any accounts that have been opened or tampered with fraudulently. And this includes credit card companies, phone companies, banks, and other lenders. Contact the police, file a report with your local police or the police in your community where the identity theft took place. The biggest issue is the money is gone and you'll never get it back. But the police, and unfortunately the police don't have a great record of recovering these funds, but it is something to help them collect the data so that they can determine where these things are happening from and how to help figure out ways to do it. And the last one here is review your credit card statements, your bank statements. I would recommend doing it on a monthly basis so that you can see what's happening on your bank account and you know what purchases are being made. But if your statements ever get stopped getting mailed to you, contact the bank or the credit card company, and maybe they'll charge you for a paper statement, but it's better peace of mind to get paper statements and know what's going on than to have be a victim of fraud. So what can you do? So Senior Busters, this is a team of volunteers supporting Canadians at the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And so this is their phone number, 1-888-7495-8501. There's also the New Horizons for Seniors program, including elder abuse awareness activities. Resources for seniors like the Government of Canada website for seniors. They have a phone line there. So Seniors Busters, they actually officially launched in 1997. And since then they've grown to approximately 50 active volunteers who come from diverse backgrounds and bring many different skills to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. And it's their attempt to reduce the level of mass marketing fraud and identity theft that's happening. It is a successful and effective long-term strategy is in reducing the number of seniors who are victimized by fraud. And they also provide emotional and moral support, education, and advice on contacting agencies and helping senior victims regain their personal dignity. Now, the New Horizons for Senior program is a program from the Government of Canada and is taking action to enable seniors to help share their knowledge, skills, and experiences with others. So this program is designed to help ensure that seniors benefit from and contribute to the quality of life in their community through social participation and active living. Now, the program was expanded in 2007 to include elder abuse awareness activities, and the elder abuse awareness component of this program helps nonprofit organizations develop national and regional education and awareness to reduce the incidences of abuse to seniors. And the Resources for Seniors has a website which provides information on services, benefits, and programs, initiatives, and government forums, and the National Senior Council. So what kind of frauds are out there? So the first one is called a phishing scam. And this is when a scammer sends you an email that appears to be a recognized institution or company, such as a bank or an online subscription, such as Netflix or Amazon. And the email may claim that you need to update your account or that you have a tax refund, your tax refund is ready. And so whatever the message is, the email is an attempt to trick you into providing personal and financial information. I would even put in phishing text messages. So same thing, you get a text message, as I said earlier, they're saying they got a refund for you or you need to update something, please log into your account. And again, they're just trying to harvest your information. Now, the advanced fee scam. So this is where a distraught individual asks you to forward a small sum of money to help them unlock a much larger amount of money, of which you are promised a sizable chunk. These are usually there's one, it was called the Nigerian scam, where they're saying that, oh, they have a gold mine and they just need you to help provide some money to help start the digging, and then they'll send you, or they'll give you a lot of money. So, and they all range in different wording, but it is pretty much the same scam where you got to give up some money at the start and they say they'll give you a bigger windfall after the fact. The inheritance scam, so it's like an advanced fee scam, and it introduces some kind of urgency, such as the death of a relative, to get access to the victim's bank account information. It may also be an advanced fee scam where the victim is asking to pay a relatively small amount up front in exchange for the privilege of collecting a larger inheritance. There's also an advanced fee loan. And so that one is where the client is asked to pay up an upfront fee in exchange for a prospect of getting a loan, which never materializes. In the process, identity information is being exchanged, so they're gathering information about you. There's another one that's becoming popular in the classified listings, and this is where a person is trying to sell an item online, and they send you a check in excess of the amount that is being bought. So maybe you're actually selling something, and what happens is they send you a check for the item, and maybe like it could be like $5,000 the check, and you only sold something for $100, and they're like, oh, just deposit the $5,000 and send me the $4,900 back to this, and maybe they get you to wire the money or go deposit the money into another bank account. But what ends up happening is that check bounces several days later, and unfortunately, you're the person left holding. You got to pay the money back to the bank. So they'll send you a check for, again, something more than what you actually sold for, and then all they want you to do is to give them back the rest of the money. So they get the $4,900 on a fraudulent check, and that was really getting popular. Now the other one is the tax debt scam, and this one is very prevalent over the last several years. And what happens is, and unfortunately, people like yourselves are being victimized of this. And what happens is they get a call from some kind of fake CRA agent stating that you have a tax debt or they've reassessed your taxes, and now you actually owe CRA money. And they threaten you with jail or sending the cops to you, or sending the police over to your house to take you away to jail. And the only way you're going to get out of this going to jail is by paying them money. But they want either the money, they want you to take the money out of your bank and put it into crypto, so that they'll tell you to go to this cryptocurrency exchange, put your money into that currency exchange, and again, the money's gone. You'll never see that money again. So this is a big one. They put pressure on you because they make you think that you're going to be taken to jail over your tax debt. And then they threaten that you have to get the money to them right away. Or they want you to buy gift cards. And so, and just so you know, everyone knows, is that CRA will never send the police to take you to jail over tax debt. And two, they actually can't take you to jail over tax debt. They'll first, anytime CRA is going to try to collect something from you, they're going to send a letter to you. If they get no response there, they may call you as a collector, but that collector is only going to ever ask that you make payments through your banking, or through online payments to CRA, or go into the bank and make a payment at the bank to pay your tax account. They will never get you to pay something in crypto to pay the tax debt. Now, according to anti-fraud centers, there are numerous types of scams and new variations of scams all the time, and they get changed every day or all the time. So, but they still involve some kind of personal information, and they're always blatantly trying to harvest your personal information, while others are simply one-shot attempts at trying to defraud you of money. Now, the Competition Bureau of Canada has a little black book of scams, and it's compact and easy to use as a reference guide that is filled with information to protect you. So if you go to the Competition Bureau of Canada's website, they will have a bit more information on that black book of scams. So real life examples of online. So because society keeps advancing pretty quickly, it is not surprising that people without scruples continue to prey on the innocent and the powerless. So here are criminals who appeal to our humanity, our compassion, and indeed our greed, and the gullibility to perpetrate crimes on a vast scale. Now, given the opportunity, you should always remind people that this is an organized crime at its worst, corrupting the weak and the exploited, the very attributes that represent the foundations upon which our society is built. And what's better way to illustrate the threat than through real life examples of criminal actions making the rounds across the globe. Now, online, so much like the famous advanced scam letter, current waves of spam appeal to the compassion of victims through pleas for mercy in the forms of financial aid. But be it a fake donation fund or to save exiles royalty, your initial investment stands to net you a percentage of some kind of vast fortune that will also serve to alleviate human pain and suffering. Now, unless it doesn't, once they've established a relationship with the criminal and send money, they'll either keep coming back to you for more, or the victim shows signs of impatience, which will simply disappear. Now, one thing is a money mule. So the mechanism is simple. The criminals use spam to infect your computer, gain access to passwords and transfer funds to accounts of associates in the same country, often to the same bank. The mule's role is then simply to ship the money overseas to a specific account. Now, another type of massive identity fraud is using social insurance numbers to fill out online tax reports and expected refunds. Now, in the US, this kind of crime was reported to take almost 1 million times in 2010. And this is particularly effective since fraudsters will almost always specify that the refund go to a debit card and not by the risky method of sending a check to a physical location. Now, CIBC actually offers a comprehensive list of tips to prevent identity fraud. So if you go to cibc.com/ca/legal/identity fraud, you can look at the images of tax fraud that could be found, or perhaps the advanced fee scam letters highlighting, which could be shown on screen. Let me just see if I can show that. Sorry. No. Sorry, I'll have to find that one at the end. Now, one thing you can do is you can go to this website. So it's about testing your identity theft IQ with an interactive quiz from the Government of Canada. And if you go there, you can fill out a course just testing your identity theft IQ with an interactive quiz. Yeah. So we got a question. So the question is, currently I have a message that pops up on my screen, irritating me often to tell me that my computer is compromised and renew my McAfee account. I don't have an account, and then I get an email to tell me $400 will be taken from my PayPal account if I do not acknowledge it immediately. Yeah, that seems like a scam. If you don't have a McAfee, I would almost recommend that you take that computer into and have it maybe checked for viruses. That might be the best way to kind of get it cleared out. But yeah, and again, if you don't have a PayPal account, that's again another scam. So just something to be aware of. It's another one that happens that I see or I've heard about is where, yeah, unfortunately, I don't know how. Yeah, the best way, as I said, take it into a computer store and see if they can run some scanning there, and to clear it out. So other ones that are so real life examples of fraud offline. So medical theft, identity theft involves people who use stolen ID to obtain medical treatments or products. This can be insidious crime, as it often makes accomplices out of the victim who often simply allow the fraud to occur because they feel pressured or intimidated into it. If you suspect this kind of crime, you can immediately report it to the Canadian Anti-Theft. So what they do is they use your information to get access to medicine and other prescriptions. Another type of real life example is a skimmer. So skimmers are used to steal personal information and card details from users as they insert their card to an ATM or payment terminal. And so you just have to be aware if there's been looking at the ATM or the payment terminal that you're going to be using to see if there's kind of a fake reader or there's something not right about it. Now, skimmers are routinely used to steal, again, the personal information. And once they get that information, they use to make counterfeit credit cards that will help them impersonate your card and complete retail transactions or online purchases somewhere else. And this type of crime is popular with independent ATMs, but also with bank machines and point of sale services. The fake reader can be purchased online and programmed using instructions above provided. So now if you do suspect that your personal information has been stolen or has been used illegally, the Office of the Privacy Commissioner of Canada will open an investigation and offer additional help and guidance. But again, I would contact your bank and get that credit card or debit card canceled right away if you think you're a victim of fraud. So 3 things that you can do to be prepared. 1, have recoverable data. 2, look for mechanisms that help you know when your identity may be compromised. And 3, try to control the disclosure of your personal information. So make sure when you recover, you do have your valuable data recoverable. So that goes into digital information. So for your financial data and health information. Now, one thing you want to look for mechanisms that will help you let you know when your identity has been compromised, such as a credit check or failed login attempts, or even password resets. So try to actively control the disclosure of your personal information. Excuse me. Ask about the need for the collection. So why is somebody trying to collect this information about you? Try to review the privacy policies and only provide the absolute minimum information, or even provide a modified answer. Be a little younger or move your date of birth to 1 day, or use your workplace postal code, or your old workplace postal code. Now, in most cases, retailers do collect this information, and it's not necessary. So there's always tons of businesses now that want your phone number, your postal code, your email address, other information, and really they don't need it. So you don't have to give that information if you don't want to. Try to always be vigilant. Review your bank statements, your mail. Now regarding monitoring. So everyone in Canada is allowed to access their credit report without their credit score from Equifax and TransUnion free of charge once a year, or once during a 12-month period. I do recommend that you put in your calendar to request it each year. Now, consider minimizing your mail, which is received at a mailbox that others can be open. And you can request electronically delivered your statements online. And that's a personal choice. If you like to receive your emails, so you get your bank statements by email, that's a personal choice, or prefer to get it in person. Sorry, there's just a question here. Yeah, Glenn, that's a good question. So Glenn's question is, how can you protect yourself from someone getting a mortgage on or sell your home or other property? So one of the best ways I've heard is getting title insurance, and that would ensure that if a transaction happens without your knowledge, there's insurance in place for you. The best one would be talking to the bank about putting your credit for that fraud alert on your credit report. So again, what would happen is that if you have that fraud alert on your credit report, someone goes to make a mortgage on your house and using your own identity, that would actually warrant that bank to do more investigation of your information. So it's really and then selling your home or other property without your knowledge. Again, there's ways that people have been doing it. I know you've read on CBC at least those kind of things happening. And I would talk to about the home. I would talk about really just making sure that you're always checking in on your property, especially if it's a rental property somewhere else, checking on it, and then even just making sure that you have, again, the kind of insurance, and putting the fraud alert on your credit report. And if you have your mail coming to your house, or if you do spend time away from your house, if you say leave the country for a few months, maybe have a friend check in on your property. So there's 3 other additional tips here. There's correction, prevention, and detection. Now these correspond to the 3 types of controls that represent the foundation of data protection: prevention, detection, and correction. And now I have provided them backwards on purpose because if there's one single thing that you can always count on, people forget to do it, and that is to have a backup plan. And in some cases, there's actual backup. In some cases, they don't actually, it's actually backing up your data. So maybe having a photocopy of your passport, your driver's license, and other credit cards. And the bottom line, assume that your identity has really already been compromised and think of all the information that you're going to need at your disposal, then collect it and put it in a safe place, like maybe a safety deposit box, or if you have a safe at home, or even just somewhere safe, so that you have that information that if anything goes missing, again, you have a copy of it. Now, there's 3 other tips that fall into the prevention category. Deconverge. Now, resist the temptation to interconnect your online accounts. So keeping logins separate. Don't let browsers actually remember important passwords, so you don't auto-populate your passwords. Try not to do that. Now, this goes for smartphones as well. And if an app automatically logs in, consider deactivating that feature, because if someone has access to your phone or your bank account or your computer, then they can access all those accounts as well. Sanitize. So periodically review what personal information is in the custody of the internet sites and remove it if it's not absolutely necessary. And then try to use passphrases. Forget passwords as if it weren't already hard enough to remember passwords, but phrases that are easy to remember but hard to guess. And use that as more of a way to change your passwords up. So make it a phrase, again, something that it's easy for you to remember, but again, people might not guess. So, I mean, I don't know, like London blue geese, something that you might just think of something offhand, but again, it might be hard for someone to kind of think of that kind of a password. So now here are the resources that we were talking about throughout the program. So Equifax and TransUnion, those are the 2 main credit reporting agencies in Canada, and you can access your credit report for free every 12 months from them. The Canadian Auto Fraud Center, and here's their website. Here's another question, is just how do you protect your credit card information from being hacked from your wallet or purse when you're in possession of them? If your credit cards are on you at all times, then that can be, you can just keep them on you. I know there's been stories of people who have scanners who will scan credit cards and things when you're just walking by, but I think they have to get very close to do that. But sometimes maybe even keeping your credit cards and bank cards at home if you don't need them, if you're going out. Try not to have them saved on your phone. And then just keep making sure that you have them on you at all times. That's some of the better ways. Unfortunately, if someone is walking by you and scanning it, there are things online that talk about how to deal with that, and unfortunately that's out of my purview of what I know how to deal with. So, but thanks for the question. Now, the Competition Bureau of Canada, the Canadian Auto Anti-Fraud Centre, so their website is antifraudcentre.ca. And then there's the Competition Bureau of Canada. They have the little black book of scams, and this is their website. But I think if you Googled up, did a search online for little black book of scams, you should get the Competition Bureau of Canada's website. And then what every older Canadian should know about fraud and scams. Again, on the Canada website, here's another information. Yeah, so a couple questions here is, people are saying, is using Apple Pay for your phone safe? And are you suggesting that we don't use Apple Pay for tap and pay? I do have I have my credit card on my phone. Again, you want to be just careful of who has access to your phone. I would recommend definitely when you're using Apple Pay, or at least on my credit card, I got to use my PIN to get in and unlock it to actually use it. So that is a bit safer. But again, if someone does happen to guess your PIN and get access to it, it can create a situation where your credit card is compromised. So it is something that you want to use. And then so yeah, and again, people can walk by and use those scanners to scan things like that. So it's great to have credit card protectors. And I guess Shirley was mentioning that she has a RDIF. I could take questions right now. We're pretty close at the end, Frankie. And then also Canada Revenue Agency has slammed the scam, protect yourself against fraud. So here's the website if you go on there. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.